Everyone in that house would have knelt for the woman in the wheelchair. She had given her legs for the boss, after all. Taken the crash that was meant for him, and never walked again. A living saint in silk, wheeled from room to room, adored by everyone who passed. Only one person in that house did not quite believe it. The girl paid to push her chair, and on the night of the engagement, in front of 400 people, that girl would push her one last time. And the whole house would finally learn what she had known for months. By the end of this, the most feared man in Kyoto will owe everything to the maid he never once looked at. Before we get into it, if you're here for the ones who see what everyone else refuses to, take a moment to subscribe. It helps this channel reach the people who need it, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I read every single one. Now, let me tell you how a maid ended up holding the biggest secret in the house. Her name was Zara. She had been hired to push a chair. That was the whole job. The boss's fiancée could not move below the waist, everyone said, and needed a strong, quiet girl to lift her, wash her, turn her at night, and wheel her wherever she wished. Zara got the post because she did not flinch and did not talk, and because she was, though no one bothered to notice, very good at seeing things. She had always been good at seeing things. It was how she had survived what she survived before this house. She noticed the tell before the lie, the flinch before the blow. She read rooms the way other people read the weather. It was the one thing she owned that no one could take. For the first month, she saw nothing wrong. She lifted Rika, and washed Rika, and pushed Rika, and asked no questions. Then, she started to see. Let me tell you about Rika. In public, Rika Mori was the most beloved woman in the west of Japan. 2 years before, the boss, Sonata, had been marked by a rival house. A car came for him in the rain, and Rika, barely an acquaintance then, had thrown herself across him and taken the crash meant for his body. He walked away without a scratch. She was pulled from the wreck and never stood again. In that world, there is no debt heavier. A man who lives because someone gave their body for his is bound to that person by something older and stronger than love. It is not a choice. It is honor. And in the Sonata house, honor is the one law that never bends. So, Jin proposed. Of course he proposed. What else could a man of honor do? He would spend his life caring for the woman who had spent hers saving him. The whole city wept at the beauty of it. Rika played the part like she was born for it. Because she was. Behind the closed doors, where only the maid could see, Rika was something else entirely. She was cruel the way people are cruel when they have decided the world owes them everything. She threw cups at Zara's head and made her clean the pieces on her knees. She invented thefts and had 2 other maids dismissed for sport. When Jin was in earshot, she was gentle music. The moment the door shut, she was a blade. And she had a favorite thing to say to Zara. She said it whenever Zara lifted her, or turned her, or wheeled her down a hall. "Look at you," she would say. "This is all you are. This is all you will ever be. A pair of hands on the back of my chair. Some people are born to be pushed through life," she would say, "and some are born to do the pushing. You, girl, are the handle." Zara said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence keeps you alive in a house that is not yours. But she was watching. She could not help it. It was what she was, and what she watched over the weeks did not add up. A woman 2 years without the use of her legs should have wasted below the waist. Rika had not. When Zara washed her, the muscle was still there. Firm, alive, a woman who cannot feel her legs does not flinch when a dropped tray crashes behind her. Rika flinched every time, and her feet moved. Once, deep asleep, Zara saw her pull both knees to her chest against the cold, then wake, flatten them fast, and check whether anyone had seen. Someone had. Then there was the physiotherapist, a silent man who came twice a week, locked the door, stayed an hour, and left having accomplished nothing. He was built like no therapist Zara had seen. She began to think he was not there to treat Rika at all, that he was Rika's in some other way. A partner, a watchdog, a keeper of the con. One night, unable to sleep, Zara passed the east garden and saw a figure standing at the fountain in the dark. Straight-backed, steady, on 2 feet. It turned, and the moonlight caught Rika's face. For one held breath, the two women looked at each other across the water. The next morning, Rika smiled at her over breakfast and said, sweetly, that she'd had the strangest dream, that a little maid went wandering where she should not, and that maids who wander tend to have accidents. Wouldn't that be sad? Zara understood the message. She was the only living person who knew the truth, and knowing it was the most dangerous thing she had ever owned. Here is the trap Zara was in. She was a maid, a foreign one, the lowest thing in the house, and the secret she carried was an accusation against the most adored woman in the city, from a girl with no proof but her own 2 eyes. Who would believe her? Jin, honor-bound and grieving, would hear a servant call his sacred fiancée a liar and have her thrown out at best, silenced at worst. So Zara did the only thing she could. She kept pushing the chair. She kept her face empty, and she waited, because there was nothing else to do. The one strange mercy of those weeks was the boss himself. Jin Sonata was not what Zara expected a feared man to be. He was tired. He was gentle in small, unguarded ways the stories never mentioned. He did not love the woman he was going to marry. He simply believed he owed her his whole life. And a man like that does not get to want things. He noticed Zara the way you notice good weather. Slowly, then gratefully. She was the one person in the house who did not perform for him. When he could not sleep and walked the halls at 3 in the morning, she was often the only other soul awake. The two of them would say nothing to each other for a long, comfortable while. 2 quiet people in a loud house. He had no idea the quiet girl carried the thing that could set him free. She had no way to hand it to him that would not get her killed. Then, the engagement gala arrived. It was to be the grandest night the Sonata house had thrown in a generation. 400 guests, every family that mattered. The formal toast. The sealing of the honor that would bind Jin to Rika for life. Rika had planned every detail. Rika, Zara had come to understand, had planned far more than the details. Because the marriage was not the end of Rika's plan. It was the middle. Zara had pieced it together in fragments. A word overheard. The false therapist's low conversations. The way Rika spoke when she forgot the maid was human enough to listen, about what would be hers when the vows were done. The crash 2 years ago had not been fate. Rika had arranged it. The rival house, the rainy road, the heroic sacrifice, all of it staged to bind herself to the most feared man in the west of Japan. The paralysis was the lock on the door, and once the vows sealed the honor and the fortune came within reach, Jin Sonata was not meant to live very long. Zara knew. And Zara could prove none of it, and the gala was tonight. The great hall glittered. Rika sat at the center of it in a silver gown. Radiant, tragic, perfect, the whole city bent toward her like flowers toward the sun. Jin stood beside her chair with the face of a man at his own funeral. Zara stood against the wall, where the handles wait, invisible as furniture. The toast had just begun when the fire started. No one ever proved how. Later, Zara had her suspicions. But it did not matter how. What mattered was the smoke pouring suddenly from the far doors and the screaming and 400 people becoming a stampede in the space of a breath. They ran, all of them. That is what people do. They ran for the exits and left behind the thing you cannot run with. They left the woman in the wheelchair. Rika sat trapped in the emptying hall as the flames climbed the far wall. She screamed for help, and the guests she had charmed for 2 years poured past her toward the doors and did not stop. A paralyzed woman is heavy. The fire was close. Everyone assumed someone else would go back. No one went back, except the maid. Zara did not decide to do it. There was no deciding in her. She simply went against the current, into the smoke, toward the woman who had thrown cups at her head, promised her accidents, and called her a handle. She reached the chair. She grabbed it and shoved it toward the near door, hard, with everything she had. Exactly as she had been built and paid and mocked to do. The chair jammed on fallen debris and would not move. The flames were coming. There was no time to free the wheels. So Zara did the only thing left. She got her arms under Rika and pushed her up and out of the chair, throwing them both toward the door. And Rika's legs caught her. In the half-second between the chair and the floor, with fire at her back and death one breath away, 2 years of the most disciplined lie in Japan simply evaporated. Because the body does not consult the plan when it is about to burn. Rika's feet hit the ground. Her legs took her weight. And she ran, fast, sure, 3 full strides toward the door before her mind caught up with her body, and she understood, too late, what she had just done, and in front of whom. Because the fire was not empty of witnesses. Sonata had gone back too. He had turned in the doorway, unable to abandon even the woman he did not love. He had come back through the smoke to save his fiancée. So he was standing 10 feet away, close enough to see everything. And the paralyzed saint he had promised his whole life to leapt from her chair and ran like a deer. For a moment, none of them moved. The fire cracked, smoke rolled, and a man who had given away his entire future to a lie watched that lie stand up on its own 2 legs. Rika saw his face and knew the game was over. She reached for one last story, some words about a miracle, the shock of the fire, her legs waking after all this time. But Zara was already speaking. Quietly, in the voice of the only person who had watched the truth for months. "Not tonight," Zara said. "She's been walking the whole time. I've seen her, in the garden, in her sleep. There was never anything wrong with her legs. They got out. The staff put the fire out before it took the house. And then, in the smoke-stained hall, with the guests filtering back and the false therapist quietly trying to leave through a side door, the whole thing came apart. Once you know a paralysis is fake, everything built on it falls with it. If Rika could walk, then Rika had never been crippled saving Jin. And if Rika had never sacrificed anything, then the accident 2 years ago was a lie too. And Jin, who was not a stupid man, only a blind one, began at last to ask the questions honor had forbidden him. The man at the side door did not get out. Jin's men saw to that. And the man, given the choice men in his position get, talked. He told them what Zara had only guessed. The staged crash. The rival house paid to miss. The 2 years of performance. The plan for after the wedding, when a grieving widow would inherit a fortune and a name. All of it, laid out in a burned ballroom, in front of the family Rika had almost stolen. Rika stood in the middle of it, standing now. Always standing. the disguise useless. And she watched 2 years of work turn to ash faster than the fire had moved. She looked, at the end, for the one person she thought she could still command. She looked at the maid. And she opened her mouth to give an order, out of pure habit, to the handle, to the hands, to the girl born to be pushed through life. Zara looked back and said nothing at all. She had learned long ago that silence keeps you alive. She had just learned that sometimes it does more than that. Sometimes silence is the last thing you hand someone before the floor opens under them. They took Rika away. Where, the family does not discuss. In that world there are heavier verdicts than the law, and the woman who tried to steal the Sonata name met one of them. They had told Zara she was only ever a pair of hands on the back of a chair. That night, those hands pushed a woman out of a fire, and pushed an entire lie into the light, and saved the life of the most powerful man in the city. The man who had never once looked at her, and who could not stop looking at her now. Jin Sonata came to her in the ruined hall. He did not know how to do it. Men like him are taught how to be feared, never how to be grateful, so he did it badly, and honestly, which is the only way that counts. He said she had given him back his life. Not his body, like the lie. His life, the rest of it. The part he had already signed away. Then he asked her name. He had never asked her name. She told him, Zara. He said it back like it was something valuable he had almost thrown away. That was 3 years ago. Zara does not push a chair anymore. She never pushes anything she does not choose to. She stayed in that house, though not as a maid, and the staff who once walked past her like furniture go quiet when she enters a room now, because they have learned what she is. She is the woman who saw. In a house built on people not being seen, that turned out to be the rarest thing in it. Jin is a different man than the one who was marrying his own executioner. Lighter, slower to fear. He learned, late, that he was allowed to want things. The first thing he let himself want was the quiet girl who told him the truth when it could have gotten her killed. They married in the autumn. No 400 guests. No saint, no silk, no sacrifice. Just 2 quiet people who had spent a long time being invisible, finally in a room where they could see each other. Rika, no one speaks of. People ask Zara how she knew, how a maid saw through a lie that fooled an entire city. She tells them it was not clever. She just watched. Everyone else looked at the wheelchair and saw a saint, because that was the story they were handed, and people would rather believe a beautiful story than watch a plain one. Zara watched the plain one. The muscle that should have wasted, the feet that flinched, the knees that pulled up against the cold. Here is the thing the powerful always forget. They build their whole world on the people they refuse to see. The hands on the chair. The girl in the corner, the one turning them at night, washing them, close enough to touch. They mock those people. They call them handles. And they never once consider that the person you have decided is nothing is the one person watching you closely enough to see everything. Never mistake the quiet one in the corner for a blind one. She is not beneath you. She is the only one really looking. If one moment in this stopped you, the knees pulled up in sleep, the run through the smoke, the boss finally asking her name, tell me which one in the comments. I want to know what stayed with you. And if you have ever been the one nobody noticed in the room, send this to someone tonight. Some people see everything. The world just never thinks to ask them.